Hello, guys. Welcome back to another exciting episode on the show. You guys know I only bring the best of guests to my show, and I take out my time to go out there to sort out for the best of guests. And like I always say, we bring the top 1% of guests to the show. And once again, today we have a very special guest. As always, today's guest is John Fawcett. Also, obviously, John is an author as well. As you guys know, we bring a lot of authors to the show. Joan dramatically changed her life over the last 30 years, from 7 toxic marriages included abuse, divorce and death, and being a prison wife. She's the author of 3 books with the theme of From Toxic to Thriving that share her personal journey of healing, finding her voice, and creating her best life. Joan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Joan, so I would like you to also introduce yourself to my audience.
Sure. You said my name. I live in Portland, Oregon. I'm a native from California. I've been a bookkeeper for 45 years. I have a grown daughter, 3 grandchildren, and I live with my cat. And I love to walk and knit, and I read a lot, and I write books when I'm not working, and I like to travel.
All right, thank you so much, Joan. So let's get into the questions I have here for you. Tell us, why did you decide to get married so many times?
I don't know why I always laugh at that, but it is funny now. A couple of reasons. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. And so the image that was all around me, on TV and in my neighborhoods was you have a mom and a dad, they get married, they have kids, the dad goes off to work, everybody seems happy. And that was on the TV as well. Everybody lives happily ever after. And then when I was 10 or 12, I joined the Mormon Church, and it's all about family. And again, you see all these happy families. And, I always thought, well, I want to marry Mr. Wonderful. I want to stay home and have a bunch of kids. And we're going to live happily ever after because we go to the same church. So, of course, we're going to be happy forever. And that didn't work out, starting with husband number 1. And then I married 5 different Mormons, and they were all terrible husbands. And I married number 2, who was not a Mormon, but we had 1 child, and then he passed away when she was a baby. So then I kept thinking, I need to find her a dad. And even though my dad was still alive for a little while, and she has a great uncle, so she had some role models. So I didn't really need to find her a dad, but I thought I did. And so then I kept getting married, and, one after another, they were not great dads and they were abusive. And I would have been better off not marrying them and just raising her forever as a single mom. But that's why I got married. And besides, also in the Mormon Church, they believe in no sex before marriage and no living together. And so, when you're in your 20s and your hormones are raging, you kind of just get married and hope for the best. But they also, I wasn't taught the kind of things you should be on the same page about. I thought, well, if we're in the same church, then everything is going to be fine. But, we weren't necessarily talking about, well, how are we going to raise our children? How are we going to handle our money? All the important things that you should talk about before you actually get married. So I kept trying. They just didn't work.
Okay, thank you so much, Joan. So why then did you leave the Mormon Church? Why did you decide to leave the Mormon
Yeah.
Church?
Okay. I was a Mormon for about 30 years. And when I met the man who was going to be husband number 7, he's in prison. And so I decided in the beginning that I was enjoying spending time with him and getting to know him. And that was more fun than sitting at church for half a day on Sunday. And the church, and I at the time I didn't really have anything against the church. I had no traumatic experience with the church itself. It was just the men I used to marry in the church. But your worldview is very narrow, and you learn to think just about a certain way about certain things, and very conservative. And when I met him and we started talking about different topics and worldview and different ideas about spirituality versus religion, and I just started learning a whole bunch of new things that were very fascinating to me. And I just decided to not go to that church anymore. And it was simple as that.
Okay. So, what did you learn from the unhappy marriages?
The best thing that I learned was that Joanne needs to know what Joanne wants and needs to be happy. And Joanne needs to learn how to stand up for herself and know what my truth is and what's important to me. Joanne's life does not need to be defined by what other people think it should be and think how I should act. So I need to become my own person and love myself before I love anybody. Love myself unconditionally and put myself first. That doesn't mean I turned into a selfish person, but it is making a priority of myself and my daughter, and those are the main lessons: to stand up for myself and be my own person.
All right. So, how then did you meet your inmate's husband, and why did you marry him?
At the time, I had a roommate whose husband is in prison, or was, I don't know anymore. And she came home one day and said, "Oh, I met this friend of my husband's, and he was visiting with his mom, and he's basically my age, and he's really smart, and he's nice and friendly, and da-da-da. I think you might like him." And I'd already had the experience of visiting people in prison, so that didn't bother me. It wasn't scary. And so I met him, and we started writing, and then I met him a couple months later in person, and we basically courted for 5 years before we got married. And I think the main reason we got married was because it looks better for an inmate to have a wife in case, not that he needed anybody to stick up for him, but in case you needed somebody to act as your advocate to the authorities at the prison, it looks better coming from a wife than it does a girlfriend. And so basically, it just looked politically correct for us to get married. It just seemed like the right thing to do. So,
Okay, thank you. That was pretty straightforward. So, how did you get to UFOs and aliens?
Say that again.
How did you get into UFOs and
Oh,
aliens?
okay. Well, husband number 7, he and his father were career military in the U.S. military, and then with intelligence, international intelligence forces and stuff. So in their work in the military, they were involved with space things and going to space. And so I learned a lot about what the military was involved with as far as space travel and meeting and interacting with non-humans on this planet and off planet. And so that was fascinating. I have to say, I know a lot more about space stuff than I ever did. So that's I got into that because of him. So.
All right, thank you so much. So, what do you mean by elementals?
Okay. Elementals are the fairy realm. So if you've heard of, fairies and gnomes and sprites and the fae people or the wee folk, that's what I mean by elementals, because they are elements of nature. They are energy beings, and they are here on this planet, and they are out in the universe on other planets and moons and things. So, but they are their energy, they're a natural being. So, and there's many different kinds of them, just like there are many different kinds of animals. You have brownies and sprites and all kinds of different things. And they can be very friendly, and sometimes they can be very mischievous. And sometimes you can see them as physical beings. A lot of times you can only see them as a shadow flitting about or a ball of energy. So I could see them as shadows, and I could feel that they were around. And I learned to treat them as a member of the family because they're very in tune. This is their mother home planet, and they love this earth more, above all else, and they try to protect it, and they get very upset with humans who don't take good care of the planet. So.
Okay, so what do you mean by okay? Doesn't magic refer to dark arts?
No. For me, for some people, yes. There's dark magic and there's white magic, and I only do white magic and things that are for my best, highest good, and that will help me create my best life. I don't put curses on people. I don't even do anything really regarding other people. It's like I do things that will help my life, and sometimes my daughter will ask me to do a little spell for her. But for me, it's all pleasant, positive energy. And it's basically magic, and witchcraft is nothing more. I mean, I shouldn't say it's nothing more. It's using natural arts. So it's not some weird thing that we just pull out of the air. It's just working with natural laws. And if you understand energy, and if you understand, maybe certain energies are stronger, like during a full moon or a new moon, or during certain astrological signs. There's so many things that play into it. It all works together, and it's basically natural laws.
Okay, so how has your life changed from before?
My life is totally different than before because I'm not a Mormon anymore, and I haven't been for at least 30 years. As long as I have not been a Mormon, as long as I was a Mormon. And I'm no longer conservative. I'm quite liberal. I'm no longer mousy, and I'm no longer mousy. So I do not get in people's faces. I'm not confrontational. I'm still a very nice person. I'm very compassionate. I'm very loving, but I stand up for myself, and I set my boundaries, and I know what I want. And I try to make those things happen if they're right for me. It's like sometimes I wait a long time for something to happen that I really want and still doesn't happen. But sometimes, the answer is wait or no. But my life has totally changed. And after I left the last husband, because he was in prison, and he's also a narcissist, so that made it really hard. And I stuck with him for a really long time, a lot longer than I should have. But I have my life back, and I feel much more creative since I left him. And, the books helped me heal, and I can put all that behind me. I use them to help. I want to help other people see that they can heal and move forward. But it's really helped me feel much more creative in positive, fun ways.
All right, John. So why did you write your books?
I wrote my book. Well, I wrote the first one because a friend of mine years ago said I should tell my story. It's like, I don't have anything to write. Oh, yes, you do. And so I did it from the basis of, I met number 7 in my 40s, and I left the church. So that was kind of, middle life. And that's when a lot of changes happened. So I wrote about the first 6 marriages and how crappy they were and what I learned from them. And, excuse me, at the time, husband number 7 and I were getting along. and it was how I changed my life, leaving the church and embracing magic and learning about UFOs and the paranormal and things like that. And then by the time he and I split up, one of my book editors from the first book, whose ex-husband was a narcissist, she said, well, why don't you write a book about that? And I'm going, yeah, no. But I found that once I did, because he wrote me a lot of letters that were not very nice as we were trying to negotiate and reconcile, I had all this material about, oh, this is exactly what these are examples of narcissistic behavior. And people need to know this. And I want to tell them through my examples of what I went through. And it also shows, it shows the healing side of that, because I went through it. I got help through therapy and stuff. And I was writing the whole time. I write in a journal pretty much every day. And I started writing a lot of that book when I was on a cruise, right as my divorce from him was becoming final. So that felt really good. And I finished it up. And then just this year, not that long ago, I published a second edition with the really happy ending. It's like I finally got paid all the money that he owed me. And, so that's the other part of how my life has changed. Like I finally am out of debt. I have time to, travel a little bit more. I can cut back on my business, my bookkeeping business, so that I can free up time to do more fun things. So it's all good, and it's all moving because, again, and I want to use the books as ways to help other people. And the third book, I wrote it because I had a psychic reading, and my ancestors said, we want you to write our stories. And I didn't really know what that meant until, I had other messages come to me from them through meditation when I was in a workshop. And it's like, I just kept getting messages about grandmothers. And then especially when the election happened a couple of years ago, and I could see what was happening to women's rights, I'm thinking, oh, I really need to write about female empowerment and positive messages. So, we as women can, find our voice again and not feel so oppressed as second-class citizens. So I started working with my ancestors through a medium, a channeler, and interviewed them. And that became very powerful. Number one, I have more of their history that I didn't know. And I could see what patterns came down to me through their experiences. And we did some healing going both sides. So I could heal some more things in my life, and they could heal from what they'd been holding on to for years, hundreds of years, some of them. So it was a very powerful experience. And sharing those messages with my children, or my one child and her children and generations going forward, I think they will just provide simple but powerful messages of hope and joy. So that's why I wrote the books, to help people.
Right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So what was it like working with your deceased ancestors?
It was really cool because I had already been working with that particular channeler. So I was used to, and I've had paranormal experiences since my 20s, but so being around spirits isn't scary for me, unless they have very negative energy, but I'm not usually around that. So I really have enjoyed conversations with my ancestors because, number one, I didn't know most of them when they were alive. I wasn't, the oldest one was from the 1700s, and then we went forward to my mom, who's passed quite a while ago. And so it was interesting because, like, my mom and her mom, they didn't really share a lot about their lives. I knew little things, but I didn't know, well, that person got molested, that person got molested, that person settled for a life she didn't really want. That person couldn't go to college. So I learned a lot, but yet they still found ways to use their voice. So it was really exciting for both, them and I to talk about all this, because they've been sitting there, hoping somebody. I don't think they ever thought that anybody would want to talk to them about it, but they were very excited when we were working on the project. And I took months to interview them, and I had a basic list of questions for everybody to answer. And then I also talked to my older sister about it, and I put in my story because, we're both grandmothers and we have things to say. So, and there's other spirit guides that I talked to through that same channeler, and they had things to add. So it was a good process. I really enjoyed it.
All right, thank you so much. This has been a very wonderful episode so far.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, John. Honestly, I was wondering what time is it? Where are you?
Where am I? I'm in Portland, Oregon, in the United States. So right now it's almost 7:30 at night.
7:30 p.m.
Yeah, it's 7:21 p.m. in Portland, Oregon right now.
Oh, crazy, crazy. Because where I am now in Africa, and
Yes.
the time where
Is
it's
it
like,
like it's still Tuesday night for me. Is it Wednesday for you?
yeah, it's Wednesday morning for me,
Okay.
3:21 a.m. And so when we were talking about ancestors, I was like, oh, I'm scared.
It
Yeah,
wasn't scary. It wasn't scary.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It wasn't scary though. Well, when I saw some of the questions, when I saw the aliens, UFOs, I was scared. I said maybe we should have booked this when it was by day by me.
was that a
But
question? I didn't understand you.
no, I said when you were talking about UFOs and aliens and ancestors and all those things, I was not saying maybe we should have booked the interview when it was day by me.
Oh, I see. Daytime for you. Yes, that probably would have been
Yeah.
easier, but then it probably would have been like crack of
No,
dawn for
that's fine.
me.
That's fine. It's just a joke, though. It's just a joke because of the ancestors and everything. Okay, so Joanne, for those who would like to connect with you and learn more about your work and your book, how can they do that?
Thank you. Okay. Sorry. Um, I'm now on Substack, and I'm learning that's probably going to be the best way to connect with me. It's just my name, Joanne Fawcett. There's numbers after it, but I don't know if they need to know that, but I can provide that to you if you want. And so I'm going to have my newsletters on there. I'm going to have different levels of community. So people, that's a good. I'm also on Instagram and other social medias that has more stuff on it now. But I'm going to put my newsletters and things on Substack. So there's a few ways to, I have a website. I've got Instagram. I got Facebook. Everything's under my name.
All right, thank you so much, Sean.
Sure.
Thanks to all the audience as well for tuning in today. Do have a wonderful day.